week. It's bad news week. Oh boy. I'm good. Rested, well fed, relaxed, clean even to a degree, except for my fingers. Where to start? Let's start with my family. Is dealing with the end of my father's life. And at a time when his grandchildren are dealing with major changes in their lives and aren't even aware of the situation with him yet. I've been video conferencing and telephone conferencing with them all regularly for a while now. My father and I made peace completely. The last time we talked, they both had pretty much declared a truce for when I ran up to Wyoming and almost got hooked up with a trans guy. I'm going to really build the suspense here and prove that I got my shit together. Do you? See how many show up. Hi, Mike. How you doing, man? Mainly, me and mine, the people close to me, are coping well with everything. Most of my friends are old hippies and nerds, and we're like, hey, we hate to tell you, we told you so. We told you that. We've been telling you this shit for years, man. The shit is now in the fan. It's good and in the van. We have a multi-agency task force being under the direct command of the president, who is totally off his fucking rocker about the violence that's going on. Now, we're going to talk in detail about that. I'm doing really well, man. I have that one little annoyance. Now I'm not even going to mention them. They think I'm here on a spur fast. I'm here to do my thing. I'm going to play a little music, and I'm going to talk about the news. I'm going to read the news, read the things I've been reading, and just ignore their shit as well as I can until somebody just decides to call me. Oh yeah, let's put the phone number in there. Make sure my phone is on and charged, and the ringer is on. I don't know how it fucking does this. The ringer turns itself off. I'll set it. I'll do just like you say. I just logged in, and you hear that little click. That was the ringtone going to max. Now I put it down on my desk, and I'm not going to touch it, and we'll see if it rings. So anyway, moving right along. Me and mine are doing real well. The hippies and the nerds, we're on it, man. We're truth bombing the fuck out of everybody, keeping it really cool. I'm gonna read you some stuff from a guy that I met at Occupy Austin, for starters, because this started yesterday. Last week on Thursday, there was a complaint filed against me in Aiken, South Carolina, and that's all I'm going to say about it right now. I've been dealing with that, and the individual who signed the complaint has been on a manic break and is in denial of that. But the beasts are definitely egging him on and making sure that he goes over the edge. And I'm just sitting there not right now taking spoon caps. I'm not even there right now, and I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna read this stuff to you. Let's start with this. The Seattle police chief sends letters to the residents. We cannot. Oh, good. It was Seattle and not Portland. I don't know what's going on in Seattle. Anybody want to fill me in on Seattle? Large violent crowds. Seattle Police Department announced on Friday. This is from a right-wing news punch. So this is totally like totally right biased. Seattle Police Department announced on Friday that residents and business owners are essentially on their own after the leftist city council banned police from using standard crowd control tools, including pepper spray and other tools used to disperse large violent crowds. Well, has there been an actual large violent crowd? And here's the letter dated July 24th. Dear business owner and or resident, please know that the Seattle Police Department is committed to addressing life safety incidents and calls for service and responding to ongoing demonstrations and unrest in the city. Please also know that the City Council Ordinance 119805 crowd control tool goes into effect this weekend on Sunday, July 26, 2020. This ordinance bans Seattle police officers the use of less lethal tools, including pepper spray that is commonly used to disperse crowds that have turned violent. Simply put, the legislation gives officers no ability to safely intercede to preserve property in the midst of a large violent crowd. It is important to bring to your attention that yesterday, I sent the City Council a letter ensuring them that as the Chief of Police, I have done my due diligence of informing them numerous times of the foreseeable impact of this ordinance on upcoming events. The letter is attached for your reference. For these reasons, Seattle Police will have an adjusted deployment in response to any demonstrations this weekend, as I will never ask our officers to risk their personal safety to protect property without the tools to do it in a safe way. Okay. The West Precinct in Seattle has boarded up their windows and brought in cement barriers to keep peaceful protesters from vandalizing and breaking in. We're going to talk about those peaceful protesters and the ones that aren't peaceful. There's some fuckery at work here, big time. Antifa.com is not true to the spirit of Antifa, as the Shoals, and I forget who the people before the Shoals established. These people are not. They're attacking. They're attacking. They're not defending against. And this is what the Shoals warned against: is that they're recruiting people to do this shit, and that's not really Antifa. Through that website. Now I don't know, because I haven't been out in it at all. I've just been watching it from here. So I don't know. But I do know that BLM and their allies and old school Antifa are keeping their demonstrations orderly. And from what I can see in Portland, and others have seen the same thing, is you got opportunist faction that's exploiting the crowd. They're exploiting the demonstration to attack the building, which is really a joke right there, because these attacks on the building, this is a 20-story reinforced concrete and steel building. It's poured concrete, you know, any of that bullshit that they had at the World Trade Center. This was fucking poured 20-story building, on steel, and they're attacking it with wrist rockets and spray cans and commercial grade fireworks that they're launching at a very low and dangerous trajectory over the crowd. It's been estimated there was something like $35,000 worth of damage in graffiti and broken windows and broken cameras. It'd been cheaper to wash the graffiti off and replace the windows and cameras, but they're spending $50,000 every time the Portland Police Department declares an unlawful assembly, and the cops can come out, or the federal cops can come out who aren't constrained with the less than lethal stuff by an order in Portland. It's different in Portland. It's not the city council. In Portland, there's a restraining order from the court on the police department for against, but there's no restraining order against federal cops. So what happens is when the Portland cops are bored and have had enough of the people out expressing their First Amendment rights, they declare an unlawful assembly, and then the feds come out and start shooting everybody. There was so much tear gas in the street the other day. There was actually a tear gas tornado. I got all this stuff on my wall. I've been keeping up with it fairly well. So anybody saying anything yet? Right on. Thanks, man. We've been saying the thing, everybody always laughed at us and oh yeah, sky's falling and yeah, and we're like, this isn't sustainable. But it doesn't. The planet doesn't work this way, and you're being like lied to about this other shit, being able to like do whatever you want and achieve whatever you want and all that happy shit. That's just bullshit. That we need to live in harmony with the world, or the world's going to make us live in harmony with it. And there's just like the power differential is just like it's an order of magnitude like 25 times exponentially between the mass of humans and the mass of the planet. And we just keep loading the planet with all this energy that all this potential energy and all this waste and shit that the planet has to deal with, and it's dealing with it, and it's very complex. But bottom line is we fucked up the balance of nature, and now I don't know if this has been confirmed or not, but Hurricane Harvey or Harry or whatever the fuck they're calling it just knocked down a piece of Trump's wall yesterday. But it was reported on RT and a bunch of other places, but none of the major American channels picked it up. And then somebody was saying that Snopes poo-pooed it. So I don't know if it's really accurate or not. But supposedly the hurricane knocked down a piece of the wall yesterday. And excuse me, but the COVID is not fucking around. And Americans are being unbelievably stupid and selfish. Just even arguing over reasonable public health precautions that are proven to work in keeping the infection rate lower. And by saying, fuck that, they're overwhelming hospital ICUs everywhere now. Now this is a cool conversation. What's this? Okay, why aren't you gonna resolve that, bitch? Oh no, we're not supposed to say bitch anymore. This is not good. That's not resolving. Let's put that away. Got another piece I wanted to read is how we'll let the computer calm down for a while. It's having trouble getting somewhere. Let's tell it to go there. And oh, good, it went right there. Yay. No, it didn't. It just went right there, and now it's having trouble going. Oh, there we go. Yay. Cool. Okay, I got the conversation I wanted. There was a picture that went around the federal cop grabbing one of the moms in a armbar, and her with a terrified look on her face reaching toward the camera, and the federale number Z26 looking away from the camera. I don't know what the fuck he is looking at. But he's got her in an armbar, And the caption is, "This isn't Iraq, this is America." A picture from Portland. And this is on James Ackerson's wall, a fellow I met at Occupy Austin. And interesting character from, he's like a small family business. He's like third or fourth generation. And, he's got 50 people that he's responsible for on the job. And he's got a wife and a kid or two. And really sharp, insightful fellow, knows what he's talking about. So here comes someone named James Gray saying the problem is the rioters have made it look like Iraq. They destroy things as they go. It's about time law and order was established and those out rioting are brought to justice. Now, not many people are out rioting. Most of the people are out demonstrating. Then somebody come up and said, "Jim, you need to step back. You have no idea what it's like here. Walk a mile in our shoes with all of the injustices and corruption. Better yet, walk a mile in the shoes of the Navy vet who just wanted to speak peacefully with Trump's Gestapo, who in turn beat him and shared his hand. There's your law and order." There were actually two of them, both of the Naval Academy grads, and both of their first demonstration, both of them intending to confront the federal officers on their oaths, and ended up getting beat up and sprayed at the same time, standing next to each other. Because also you have no say in this. Y'all lost the last revolution of people who were tired of being treated like shit. They've lost a few of them like that. That was the first of many. And then James comes in with, "Don't you people have a pedophile prince to deal with?" And somebody come along with a bunch more memes. And this is a pretty standard comeback for people. James Gray comes back because it's simple. If you're not out destroying where you live, you won't get your head stomped on by the law. And he's saying it's all of our problem because the globalists don't have borders. Okay, so now James Ackerson is on him. Watch enough TV. He's like, "Wow, watch enough TV, do you? Reading the Breitbart? Paying close attention to the tabloids? Fuck you all. I'm responsible for the work of 50 other people and make today's equivalent of the 1970 minimum wage. I don't care if they burn this entire shit heap to the ground. For all I care, I'll have to send them a copy of the little white book. It'll teach them to get that kind of stuff out of there. The illusion is in the open. Perhaps if it burned all the way down, we could build something more akin to what America claims to be rather than what it is. A low-wage shithole with a few hundred billionaires that own almost everything." Also, Val Brontar, last I saw, you were all about the Viking thing. Viking is an occupation, not a genotype. Northern European is a genotype. You can't talk shit on people raiding and call yourself a Viking. That's not how it works. And this the Viking dude come back with a meme that says 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and 3 if by unmarked van. And those vans are rentals. They're housing these guys at the Marriott, and they're running around town kidnapping people in enterprise rental vans. And then they're taking them into the basement of the Justice Center and torturing them for a few hours. And then they release them like somewhere else from where they picked them up. So James is still going off here a little bit. She says, "Deal with the Lizard Queen and her offspring and get back to me afterwards. Solve your own problems then. If you're bored, turn your eyes to the U.S. or keep being scripted NPC." I'm not sure what that one means. "Sitting next to his hearth repeating rumors. I don't care." So here comes me. I could always count on this shit getting eyeball deeper on you, James. Go ahead and occupy this conversation, suckerface. Totally toxic Tommy, reporting for duty, attacking truth bombs. Oh, that's a cigarette. Don't want to do that. We pass those around too. You need to put a sock in that misinformed limey yap, James Gray, and definitely tend to your lizard queen, pedophile prince, and clown PM with the silly hairdo before you go running your mouth about politics on this side of the pond. This is not spontaneous civil unrest. This orchestrated, choreographed political theater designed to manufacture consent in the minds of brain-dead, zombie-wage slaves for the implementation of full martial law in America instead of this half-ass shit they've had going for the past 20 years since 9/11. There is a small faction that has nothing to do with the demonstration, attacking the building under cover of the nonviolent march. These terrorists are quite likely operatives of the illegal covert government. Portland's leading hemp activist, Steve Wessing, responded, "Can you say COINTELPRO?" when I asked him for his take on what was going on. That's a hardened concrete and steel tower being attacked with spray paint, wrist rockets, and commercial fireworks in what may as well be a scene from Marat Sade. And that's actually the assassination and persecution of Jean-Paul Marat under the direction of, as performed by the asylum inmates. Yeah, it had a long title. But anyway, get back to this. For the tragic comic ludicrousness of the whole scenario. A hastily assembled, untrained team of military police was unleashed in the streets of Portland that is being housed at the Riverfront Marriott and is driving around town in vans rented from Enterprise, proactively arresting people on suspicion of intent to commit malicious mischief, taking them to the basement of the courthouse, subjecting them to a few hours of mild torture, and releasing them well away from where they were abducted. That this is political theater is undeniable. And it's quite possible that the people assaulting the building are paid provocateurs. This is not in the BLM or Antifa agenda, and Antifa doesn't have the resources to be launching commercial fireworks. There has been less than $50,000 damage to the hardened poured concrete structure. It would have been cheaper to bring out a power washer for the graffiti and replace the broken windows and security cameras. So here dude comes back at me, get the fuck out of here. I'll say what I like and when I like. I'm fully aware of what's going on, and I agree that there is a small hardcore group intent on destroying everything while hijacking the BLM protest. Antifa is a shit group, and rightly so, made domestic terrorists. See, this is bullshit. The Antifa.com is a total front for something, and it ain't fucking Antifa. Not by the classic Antifa protocols. Antifa is not about doing that kind of stuff. Again, if all the peaceful protesters went home, then it would only leave the paid agitators to face the law. It's not the building they're attacking, it's the people in it or the police. I blame those in control of Portland. They shouldn't have let it go so far. Then Trump wouldn't have sent in the heavies. I would still say the same protesters go home. That'll leave the rioters to face the music. And I come to him, you're the one who needs to bugger off, Scouser. Running your mouth about things you know absolutely nothing about. Antifa is little more than a concept among the true anti-fascists, and Antifa.com is an obvious front for the man. Anybody wearing the merch or waving the flag is a fucking idiot. It hasn't gone very far at all, actually. Nightly protests that were pretty orderly were winding down when Ildu sent in the heavies, eliciting the violent reaction. Go comment on bullshit in your own country if all you have going for you is bullshit opinions and false facts about ours. And here's James Ackerson again. Thing is, you aren't fully aware. Being fully aware is not only being privy to firsthand information, it's seeing it firsthand and being there when you can. Being involved with people who are always there when you can't be. Not out of context videos and opinion pieces that push forward your personal views. When you air your grievances and then they tell you to shut up, that's a huge no-no. And then he asked me, what's a scouser? And it's a slang for working class people from Liverpool that people from other parts of the UK were using as an insult on people that weren't necessarily from Liverpool. I was going to say I'm not from Liverpool, I'm from London. I was interested in why you thought I was a scouser. As my Scottish friends, I picked it up from using it on Londoners. They thought we're talking shit a lot. I said, I imagine you get called a Tory cunt a lot too. He said, no, I'm not a Tory. I can't stand them. Tories are people who go conservative. I have to watch the time because I have an appointment at 4 o'clock. as for the idiot that's hoping that I'm gonna freak out on them. I'm not familiar with that fake news anchor. And I'll look at it in a minute. I'd really like to go through what James had to say here. Here's where James starts going down. Yeah, this is what I wanted to read for you. Here's James Gray is trying to say, he's expressing, I told him you were expressing the conservative viewpoint on our riots, either that or the neoliberal fascism of the corporate Democrats and their wage slaves. Oh yeah, stay home, obey the cops, yada yada yada, and lock them fuckers up. No, and I'm expressing common sense. If you're not out rioting and destroying property, there's nothing to worry about. If you're out breaking the law and throwing missiles at the police, then expect a swift, aggressive response from those sent to deal with the trouble. And Ackerson says, I'm still telling you that the aggression from the crowd came as a response, and it snowballed from there. This is not coming from a secondhand source. The aggressive response came from the crowd. The things you are talking about are all a response of the people being told to shut up and go home with beatings and tear gas. The beatings and tear gas came first. The violence from the crowd was a reaction. And James Gray says, yeah, okay, I get that, but rioting is not going to get them anywhere but a hospital cell, except hospital or a cell. So James is like, so your answer to this is cowardice. Okay, I can accept that. There are quite a few cowards who believe in next to nothing enough stand and fight. And my response to him was, the grown-ups in the crowd are well aware of that. You've got a wall of moms, a wall of vets standing at parade rest in formation, and a moving wall of dads with hockey sticks and leaf blowers to deal with the tear gas, standing between the unruly mob and the cops. What you're witnessing is that at some point every night, the Portland shit-eaters declare an unlawful assembly, which is the green light for the federal troops to clear the street. Portland is constrained by order from using gas and non-lethal rounds, and the feds aren't. All of your reasoning about this is based on incomplete data due to network censorship and spin. James and I are both boots-on-the-ground gonzos connected right to the people there. We'll follow Johnny Dangers and Unicorn Riot. There are a few more whose names aren't coming to mind right now who are streaming from there in utter hotspots. Chuck the network news, chum. They're skull-fucking everybody. And here's James again. As for the globalists, we're undoubtedly being tested and conditioned at the same time. On both sides. How much shit will we take given certain circumstances before we start shooting at each other? He didn't say that. While also setting dangerous precedents. It's real dusty today. So here's James Gray again. Not being arrested or injured is not cowardice. The thing is, it's not protesting when you burn down shit and paint the town how you like. It's breaking the law and it has to be dealt with. They will never back down on that, and they would be better off if they could protest tomorrow, not lay in hospital with injuries. I'm mad because James went completely down a different road. Where was it? That's what I wanted to say is that protest organizers. I mean, I know this from Occupy Austin and subsequent things, and things before that, is that there's nonviolence training for the participants in public assemblies at most planned events. And just in general, we learned our lesson at Kent State about how to behave around cops and troops when we're airing our grievances. And you know, there were standards set for protests in America back in the 1940s by Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin that were carried forward by Dr. King and the Black Panthers. And the hippies, well, we've been there, you know, the rainbow hippies have been right there with the Native Americans straight along since Alcatraz, 1969. You know, it's about peaceful and prayerful assembly saying no. This is not how we're going to do things anymore, and it's a long, hard process, but we've made a lot of progress in my lifetime toward equality and justice. That since 1980 we've lost a lot of ground because of trickle down economics and just incredible greed that they've enabled with it, but that and the repeal of what is it, Glass-Steagall under Clinton. You know, they've just been robbing us for the last 20 years, 40 years. They've been robbing us, and it's both parties. You know, it's both parties. You have to be a total fucking idiot to think that the Democrats are that much better than the Republicans when you look at the vote on the Bernie Amendment to cut 10% from the budget, the Pentagon budget. At 10%, it's just money that's getting stolen and stashed offshore anyway. And they just, no, you're not going to put that back into circulation for the people. That's just not going to happen. And it was both sides of the aisle. Definitely shouldn't be smoking with this much sweet mouth. Just in the air. They not being arrested and not injured. Okay, we read that. Start with the pandemic. Mandatory masks. You don't ever see me gasping for air, do you? You hear me trying to clear my throat. Start with the pandemic. Mandatory masks, mandatory vaccination, and the like. The CDC and the NHS purposely put out piles of contradictory information on the pandemic to create a polarized mentality because no one can quite grasp which of the contradictory points is true. I don't know if that's quite so purposeful as just a matter of, circumstance dealing with a virus that was brand new, and their understanding of it changed quite a bit over time, and it's still changing. They still don't really know. Throw in the politicization of the situation, and what you get is half the country in favor of mandatory masks, which is acceptable and somewhat silly sounding, but if it helps even the smallest bit, okay, I will wear the equivalent of drawers on my face. However, it also has the same group of people begging for mandatory vaccination, which would set a dangerous precedent for bodily autonomy. Not to mention, and here's James in London. I'm in London and it's mandatory to wear masks on public transport to go in shops. I'm in the pub with no mask. I don't believe COVID is that bad, and I don't know anyone who's died. Not bad for living in London and working in central London. Moving right along, let's move on to the protests. Same situation. The media spreads information contradictory to first-hand sources to politicize the situation and peddle fear. These people that become scared of their own neighbor due to this fear porn are all of a sudden all for increased surveillance and the indefinite detainment with suspension of due process of law of their neighbors under the suspicion that they may commit an act of vandalism, not only an affront to bodily autonomy, but also an affront to the guaranteed legal rights of the citizen. And this is something I've been warning about for years, is about manufacturing consent, that we don't want to give them. This is the reason why we keep it nonviolent, because when we get violent, we've given them justifiable cause for using excessive force, and that also manufactures consent when the news media peddle it, put their fear porn together, then they manufacture consent within the wage slaves to do that, to where they can go out and proactively people on the suspicion of intention to commit a malicious mischief. So to each side cowing to their political masters and accepting their dose of propaganda, the mandatory vaccination on one side sounds just as messed up as the jackboot thugs on the other. However, both have been prey to a scheme to get them to agree on one thing: that bodily autonomy and free thought have no value when concerning a private citizen. At the end of the day, both sides have been fooled in supporting this very thing, one with science, the other through politics, and both through a dose of confusion designed to open them to suggestion and be fear porn propaganda. We'd be better off if we scrapped the whole thing and started from scratch. Here's a story written by a man who used to work for my grandfather as an irrigation laborer. Aside from the obvious flaws in his tactics, had he bombed the headquarters of Pegasus Mining, the people who were actually poisoning and tearing up the land adjacent to his property in Lincoln, I'd have found it much more agreeable. I too have a soft spot for the area around Copper Creek and Snowbank Lake. Anyway, this matters not. The story, however, is incredibly valid, and what it is a page not found. I better tell him. Let's see if he finds it this way. Yep. I better tell him. It's the story of Ted Kaczynski. Apparently worked for his family's farm. Oh, well, I thought I was going to play that. So back to, I guess, the main story. The way I read it is that if we don't get together and take things in a more positive direction, we won't have to worry about our individual grievances any longer, because we'll all be fucked. We may all be fucked at this point anyway. I just don't intend to take it lying on my back. I'm taking it sitting on my ass, running my mouth, and pounding my keyboard. So here's, you can't replace law and order with chaos. This is an interesting area here. Maybe, it's like, well, here, let them talk it out, and then I'll come back. What's the replacement to the current regime? It doesn't lie with BLM or Antifa attacking figures in law, so they can set a TAS. You're in a gray area. When law and order is subjective, how much good is law and order? When the law does not apply to those sworn to defend those who make the laws and those who interpret them for the purpose of judgment, you are a subject. But the people are the fulcrum in our system of checks and balances. We, the people, are the ones who are either going to enable or disable any authoritarianism that's displayed unconstitutionally by any of our elected officials. Nobody's sitting still over this. It's unclear whether we're going to prevail or whether they're going to be able to implement this medical tyranny is really what it boils down to, is the pandemic thing is they want to be able to track everybody all the time. They want digital money, and they want mandatory vaccination, and oh boy, they want they want to maintain the status quo, but with a lot less people. That's really what they're looking for. I haven't really gotten too deep into it because it's obvious what's going on to me. So I take a long view of things, and I've been pretty extensively studying the post-Columbian history and the impact of the banker gangsters. That's what they're called today. Buckminster Fuller called them the great pirates, who were the ones in control of the sea lanes. And what they do is they'd set up puppet governments on both ends of the trade route and play both ends from the middle. And this is the way it works. Is the Rothschild-Morgan cartel financed the American and French revolutions, and financed the entire Industrial Revolution. And they've been playing both ends from the middle. They profit from the war. War doesn't benefit anybody else but the people who are manufacturing the war toys and the politicians who convince people to go and kill each other for it. It's all about the control of resources. The humans are the only species that doesn't. All the other species, none of them really will fight to the death over food or shelter or even mates. They don't usually fight to the death. Not only do humans fight to the death, but they commit mass murder to protect the resource. I think on that note, I'm going to end without ever mentioning those fucking idiots in detail, because this is really, there's going to be a comparison. There's logjam. Oh, look at all this. Oh, geez, look at this. Goodbye, Joey Marlboro. Strange. So anyway, I'm going to logjam with the TPD over whether they'll call in the FBI or not for assistance, which that was the deal in the first place 5 years ago. And then this person in Aiken, South Carolina, went and filed a harassment complaint against me that the assigning captain, he didn't think that there was any foundation to it. And I explained what was going on, and he expressed a willingness, but then it got all weird because somebody called him at 2 o'clock in the morning to tell him about the video I'd made. So now it's just between the TPD OPS, a sergeant named Zeiss, and hey, everything Tucson, happy day, thanks for coming. It's either going to break the log. I've been trying to get 3 days off for a while. It's not a shirt; it's a kimono. It's not a Hawaiian shirt. It's a kimono. Oh yeah, he wants leg picks. All right, I'll make sure he gets some leg. Let's give him the leg. That's for Doc Dickhead. Or some leg. Thank you. Happy day. So anyway, basically, I've been trying to get 3 days off at the Happy Acres or in the woods or something for months, and I can't. And I've offered us, like, look, this person is totally nuts. They're being programmed. I mean, they admitted to being on a vendetta because I ran them out of a group at the request of a PhD psychologist who was trying to present a paper, and she kept all up in her face. So one was presenting a paper she wrote to my group, and here's D trying to tell her that she's full of shit because of brain, dimorphism and something or other. And she's all totally like, I'm gonna have to listen to this Dick Swab. He's a neurobiologist, neurophysiologist. I don't know. He's a neurology guy, he's a neurosurgeon kind of guy, and it's just all like wound up in this, and it just, I've read a fair bit about it, and I've been told, what I've read says that nobody has ever found a distinctly, there's no distinctly male or female brain. The brain is a mosaic made up of parts that control behaviors, gender behavior. Certain parts do certain things. And that's just the way it works. But you can't look at a brain and say, oh yeah, that's a male brain. Or oh, that's a female brain. Because it's all ranges, There's a spectrum. And these binary guys, fucking people colonized, they're totally programmed to binary thinking that it's either one or the other. And they can never accept that there's other circumstances. Excuse me, I'm not a man or a woman. I'm male, my reproductive organs are male, but my feelings, the way my body wants to move, things like that are female. And people who think in the binary like that refuse to acknowledge that my identity is real. And, which is pretty bold. I'm always telling a queer audience that, you can't expect anybody to respect your alternative lifestyle and the label for it if you don't respect the majority of people who are cisgender and heterosexual lifestyle. You get what you give. And they don't, these people stuck in the binary, queer, transsexuals stuck in the binary are real harmful to the community and to themselves. And I really don't want to talk about that stuff because, this video is a comparison to, these people are claiming that I'm a mentally ill sexual predator who fucks dogs. And none of these things are true. I'm strange. I have psychoneuroses. We all have little weirdnesses about us. And I have some unusual ones that I've fallen into because as coping with my gender dysphoria that they exploit it with their own suppositions about it and injections of their own fucking peculiar perverted fantasies, attributing them to me, which is much bullshit. And like I said, I really don't even want to go here. I'm in too good a mood. Let's see what's happening at Facebook. I got this from Nomad at AMB. This is good. The history of transgender healthcare by Scientific American. It's a guest blog. Let's see how long it is before I start reading. No, not very. It's very good. It's by Farah Naz Khan, who is a doctor and a writer. And that's interesting. Okay, so it's not very long. This is a nice article. A history of transgender healthcare. As the stigma of being transgender begins to ease, medicine is starting to catch up. And this was written November 16, 2016, shortly after the election, just as the stigma of being transgender started to get worse again, thanks to Twitler. An estimated 1.4 million Americans, close to 0.6% of the population of the United States, identify as transgender. That's actually a figure from an old, that study was from like 2013, actually, they're quoting. Today, the topic of transgender healthcare is more widely discussed than ever before. Yeah, because they're trying to make it illegal for kids. Despite this, lost in the shuffle between the conversation about equal access to bathrooms and popular culture icons is the history of a piece of modern medicine that should no longer remain so elusive. To be willing to embrace the future of this pivotal area of healthcare, it is imperative. Oh, it's about time for me to wrap it up. I have a 4 o'clock appointment, video appointment. To be willing to embrace the future of this pivotal area of healthcare, it is imperative to understand the piecemeal roots and evolution of transgender medicine. Magnus Hirschfeld, a German physician who could easily be considered the father of transgender healthcare, coined the term transvestite in 1918 at his Institute for Sexual Science in Berlin, defining transvestism as the desire to express one's gender in opposition to their defined sex. Hirschfeld and his colleagues used this now antiquated label as a gateway to the provision of sex-changing therapies and as a means to protect his patients. Going against the grain, Hirschfeld was one of the first to offer his patients the means to achieve sex change, either through hormone therapy, sex change operations, or both. In a time when his contemporaries aimed to cure transgender patients of their alleged mental affliction, Hirschfeld's adaptation theory supported those who wanted to live according to the gender they felt most aligned with, as opposed to the gender that their sex obligated them to abide by. Much of the histories of the Institute's early works were destroyed in the wake of the Nazi book burnings in 1933, but as far as history can prove, Hirschfeld's Institute was the first to offer gender assignment surgery. But I wanted to back up into this, where this idea of living according to the gender they felt most aligned with, as opposed to the gender that their sex obligated them to abide by. Gender identity is genetic. You are born with a potential for male or female behavior or something somewhere in between. That's everybody. There are only 2 kinds of gametes. You can only be male or female in the sex, but in the gender, it's more of a spectrum. And, not all women are feminine. Not all men are masculine. And that's just something people are going to need to learn, that they can't impose their cultural norms for gendered behavior on people against their will anymore. That's last century stuff. We're queer, my sex does not match my gender. It is uncomfortable for me to behave like a male. It is dangerous for people around me to make me behave like a male. What's so hard about that? In 1922, Hirschfeld performed castration on Dora Richter, one of the Institute's employees, who went on to complete her sex reassignment with further surgeries at the Institute. The Institute's most famous patient was arguably Danish painter Lilleelb, born Einar Wagner, whose life story has been fictionalized in the popular film The Danish Girl. Starting in 1930, Elb had 5 surgeries performed as part of her male to female transition. Unfortunately, Elle died from infection-related complications of her final surgery. World War II in Nazi Germany forced Hirschfeld into exile, and along with the destruction of his Berlin Institute, minimal further advancements were made by this group at the time. Pioneering influences in America began emerging in the 1940s, including Alfred Kinsey, the biologist who founded the Institute for Sex Research at Indiana University in 1947, now known as the Kinsey Institute. Kinsey was one of the first to use the term transsexual in his gender studies, and he helped introduce America to a concept that for some reason still seems foreign to many today, despite its obvious place in history. I'm pretty sure that the term transsexual was coined by Harry Benjamin. Okay, it's getting down to Benjamin here. The first American to undergo a sex change operation was Christine Jorgensen. Oh, I can't finish this. I gotta go. I have to go. I have to be in the waiting room in a few minutes. I'll finish this another time. Thank you, Hula Force. It's not a shirt. It's a kimono. But thanks for coming. I gotta go. I have a doctor's appointment at 4 o'clock. Thanks for coming. Happy day. Bye bye.